Okay, hi there. Good morning. So I've had a 2 week break, and I kind of feel ready for another batch of almost like season two. So I've had about roughly 3 months of sessions after Boris Johnson announced the no gatherings policy back in, I think it was the 16th of March. So carrying on with these sessions to help just helps kind of stimulate people with ideas around Buddhism, concerned with the lockdown. And I was looking at something on YouTube yesterday, a Dr. John somebody, and he was, it's quite kind of shocking really. He was just looking at things in real detail, and the thought that there might actually end up being something like 500,000 deaths in the UK is quite a thing, really. And the whole thing of people, kind of not sort of taking responsibility, and particularly young people not taking responsibility for their actions, the actions having consequences. So this is the central teaching in Buddhism, really, that actions have consequences. So I live in a student area, the main student area in Manchester in the UK, and there's been lots of parties happening around me in the park and in people's back gardens, and then all the students are all going home now. So they've all been mingling with each other a lot, and now they're going home to their families, and so and probably they don't think what the effect that's going to have. So I think what I'd like to do, as well as doing this series on Meet the Order, is to maybe do some separate sessions and try to explore what goes on there. What in terms of Buddhism, in terms of the four foundations of mindfulness, which is the central teaching on mindfulness in Buddhism. What's actually going on, when people do that, when they're responding to the feelings in a particular way, and what happens in the mind, what happens with the views and things like that. And I think I want to try and explore that a bit. So we're carrying on with Meet the Order. So series on Meet the Order, series 8, and this is like season 2 in a way of sessions, another 3 months roughly. So I've been looking at who I can book for the coming week and future weeks. So we've got a really interesting week this week, because very much focused on meditation. So today and tomorrow, I've got Kamalashila, who's one of the foremost meditation teachers in Triratna Buddhist community. And then that's Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday and Thursday I've got Vajradhaka. So Vajradhaka was Kamalashila's kind of partner in crime in a way at Vajraloka. That they were the two main teachers. Very different styles, but both of them, very kind of connected to meditation, very creative. So this is exciting. So I'm going to have those two, and then somebody else on Friday. Might be Mahaprabha. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, and maybe Regya Mitra at Vajraloka after that. So. So the sessions are lining up. So it's a little bit different today, because Kamalashila, he preferred to record things in advance, because he's, so keep his meditation practice going at the same time. So I've actually recorded the interview with him yesterday, and also the teaching session, the meditation he led yesterday, recorded that yesterday as well. And it's going to be the same with Vajradhaka. We're going to record in advance, because he's teaching at the same time as this. So in the morning. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, I've already got the video on Facebook. I'm just going to open it up to the public after I've done some body work and meditation. So I'll just be able to, you'll be able to just watch it on the page. Okay, so we begin with the usual body work. Okay, so we'll begin by rubbing your hands together. Give your hands a bit of a squeeze. And squeeze up your arms. So just taking our time. And drumming with your fingers on top of your head. And being aware of the contact of your feet and the ground. Shake your hands out on your feet. Take some deeper breaths. And then just put your forehead in the palms of your hands and curving over your spine so that it's as if you're kind of turning away from the world into a little bit of a fetal position. And enjoying the feeling of your breath on your wrists and your head being held by your hands. Just kind of relaxing into this position, just letting your body be supportive to your mind and emotions. And you're turning away from the world. It's like, you don't have to be always responding to things, looking at things, or expressing things to the world. Sometimes you just need to not do that, do something different. Just turn inwards towards yourself and just connecting with how you're feeling at the moment. Just giving yourself a bit of attention around how you feel. Maybe have your knees slightly bent. Enjoying the warmth of your hands and your face. And just begin to give your face a bit of a wash with your hands. Okay, and then just cup one elbow in the palm of your hand and going over the top to try and get to stimulate the top of your spine, top of your shoulder. And the other side. And then down the outside of your left arm. And onto the back of your hand. And just make it a little bit painful to wake your hand up. And then palms of your hands. And up the inside of your arm. And then the other side. Back of your hand. Okay, and just take your time. Palms of your hands. And up the inside. Chest. And then circling on your stomach clockwise. Listening to the sound of your hands brushing on your clothing. Just allow your mind to be a bit lazy. It's like you don't have to be doing anything at the moment. Apart from just being aware of your physical sensations, in your hands and your body. And then just drumming lightly on your kidneys at the back. And then more heavily on your buttocks and the backs of your legs. And down your legs, as far as you can go. And shaking everything out. Rub your hands together. Okay, so hopefully that's working your body up a little bit. So now it'd be nice to do a little bit something that smooths the energy out. So just put your hands on your stomach. And allow your breath to calm down. And the next time you notice that you're breathing out, just bending your knees. And when you're breathing in, straighten your knees. So you're going down on an out breath and coming up on an in breath, and then down on an out breath and coming up on an in breath. Notice if you're not moving at all, it might mean that you're a little bit stuck in your thoughts. Put those to one side if that's the case. Put them in another room or something. You're just doing a physical thing, which is bending your knees on an out breath, straightening them on an in breath. Just take your whole body down in one piece. And don't worry too much about it. Just getting it roughly right. Up on an in breath, down on an out breath. Now put your hands out the front, so on the in breath you're bringing them up to your chin, turning at the chin, down on the out breath to your hips, turning at the hips, up on the in breath, turning at the chin, down on the out breath. Just get into a nice rhythm. You don't have to think about it. Down on the out breath, coming up on the in breath. And next time keep going past your chin, into the air, out to the sides, up the middle again. Then one last one, doing it slowly. And then trying to not disturb any positive energy that you've developed in your body, any relaxation, just moving mindfully into your meditation posture. So sitting on a chair or on cushions, and getting used to this new position that your body's in, so feeling the contact of your feet with the ground. So we're going to do my favourite, which is the grounding meditation. So we're just going to make it conscious what our situation is at the moment, right now. So sitting in a way which your skeleton is taking your weight down into the seat, into the ground. So being aware of our situation. So what is that situation at the moment? Well, first of all, we're alive. A human being alive. And we exist in time and space. So let's just first of all be aware of time, being aware of the dimension of time. Having a sense of all the moments that you've experienced in the past. whenever we're trying to do something in meditation, we often just have to give it time. So just being patient, just waiting for yourself to it to become apparent that you've had a past. Time to dawn on you. Reality of time. And you also will have a future, hopefully. So again, just being aware of all the moments that you will experience in the future. And it's also the case that right now you exist in a particular moment in time, which is the present moment. Giving yourself enough time for that truth to dawn on you. So what else is the case? So it's the case that you also exist in space. You're sitting on a huge ball of matter called the Earth. So above your head is the atmosphere of the Earth, which is about 10 miles thick. And beyond that is empty space. Well, every now and then there might be a star or a galaxy or something, but not very often at all. It's huge, great distances out there. So yeah, just allow yourself to be aware of the existing space. And the Earth is covered in oceans and ice caps, forests and farmlands, mountain ranges, villages and urban developments. and you're at a particular place on the earth, wherever that is. So letting it dawn on you that this is where you are on the earth, your particular location. So just allowing yourself to arrive in this place. And if your mind is a bit busy and your thoughts are there, just maybe put them to one side just for now while you're just doing this simple exercise. Being aware of your situation in time and space. So it's the case that we exist in time and space. So what else is the case? Well, it's the case that we have a body with us all the time. So that body is a physical object in a physical world. And it's got a particular structure to it. Your body's got bones to support the body's weight, and muscles to move the body about, and organs to keep it alive in various ways. So it's tuning into the structure, particular structure of your body. Try to see where the bones are, where the muscles are, the organs. And just try to allow your align your mind with the reality of your body. So can you allow the skeleton to take the weight of the body? So all you need to do is just allow the body to just sit there. It doesn't need any help from your mind to hold it up. It knows how to sit down. All you need to do is just balance your spine so that the weight goes down into the cushions, into the chair, so that you're not leaning over. Because if you're leaning over, you're going to need to put tension on one side of your body. And then if your body's balanced, the skeleton's balanced, then the muscles of the body can feel confident that they can let go, the body will still be supported. And relaxation is like a physical thing. It's just like unfurling a fist. So it's having a sense of unfurling any tension that's in the body. Beginning with the crown of the head, muscles of the scalp, the forehead and the face, just allowing the face to become soft, relaxing in the jaw, and down the back of the neck, shedding tension across the shoulders, softening at the tops of the shoulders and down the arms. Softening in the hands, being aware of all the many nerve endings in the palms of the hands and fingers or used for help manipulate objects. We don't need to be doing any of that now, so just let everything come to a stop. Just allow the hands to become quiet. And the face as well, and the feet, all becoming quiet. And softening around the heart area. And becoming receptive to how we're feeling at the moment. Being sensitive to how we feel. Being aware of the little muscles between the ribs. And allowing those muscles to become soft and long and relaxed. And letting go around the solar plexus in the centre of the torso. Softening there. And softening in the belly. Feeling the roundness of the belly. And having a sense of the metabolism of the body quietening down. The needs for things quietening down. Becoming aware of your pelvis. And how your pelvis is supporting you. tops of your thighs, or just helping you to sit down, supporting the upper half of your body. The big muscles of your thighs. Allowing those to also to become soft. To let go of any tension. So that your knees are moving away from your hips as you relax your legs and your legs become longer. And softening in the calves and the shins. Just allowing the flesh of on the muscles to just fall away towards the ground. And finally the feet. A sense of how the feet are supported by the ground. The bones of the feet are being supported by the ground, so the muscles can just soften and fall away from the bones. As we let go of tension in the body and rely more and more on our skeleton to support our weight, rather than seeing any need to hold on with our muscles. We can also have a sense of our mind and our emotions feeling supported by our body. So getting a sense of reassurance coming from that structure of the body, which is there for them, supporting them. So beginning to bring your meditation practice to a close. Being aware of the whole of your body and sensations in your body sitting here. Just really taking your time to emerge out of your meditation. Okay, so as I said earlier, I pre-recorded an interview with Kamalashila. All right, so welcome to what is it? Day 72 of compassionate response to COVID-19. I'll have already started the session with some bodywork and meditation, but I needed to record this session because of Kamalashila's health condition, really. Getting up early, and is that it? Why are we not doing it at 7:30?
7:30. I do my meditation practice.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
It's nothing to do with my health.
yeah. All right, that's what I assumed wrongly there. Yeah.
Well, it kind of is in a way.
Yeah. So didn't want to disturb his meditation practice. So Kamalashila, basically brought me into the Western Buddhist, what was then the Western Buddhist order, in 1997, 23 years ago. So he ordained me and gave me my name, Mahabodhi, which means great enlightenment. So it's not a description; it's more a aspiration or something like that. So you almost called me Mahamuni, didn't you? You said great sage. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was quite a time, wasn't it? Like 3 weeks. Spent 3 weeks together in the valley in silence around getting ordained, and in Guyaloka. And then I came out the other side, and actually that just talk about that a bit. I got into the retreat, and I think people have very different journeys. Like some people are a bit like workaholics, and then they get onto the ordination retreat, and they've got nothing to do but meditate, and they go crazy. For me, it was like I got there, and I couldn't really relate to a lot of the people on the retreat. I didn't seem to gel with them, So it's kind of, I felt a bit isolated for the first half of the retreat, and then Kamalashila turned up, and I felt connected because I thought, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing now. It's like getting ordained, and then the Bodhisattva ideal, studying the Bodhisattva ideal afterwards, and I was connecting with Avalokiteshvara and all that, So yeah, so I think things can be very different for different people. Yeah, so what we're going to do is like explore Kamalashila's history today, and also I think what I'd like to do is to draw out a little bit of some of the things that he's kind of uniquely experienced at or good at, and one of the things that is really relevant today. And I was thinking about this. This is like almost like a second season of sessions. I've had 2 weeks off, and now it's like another 3 months. And it feels a bit like with the lockdown, we've had our first phase. Like people have kind of coped a bit with watching telly, or kind of probably drinking quite a lot more than they normally do. And now probably it's going to bite a bit deeper because. It's like, what do? You can distract yourself to a certain amount, and then the distraction stops working in a certain sort of way. So it's like a little bit more. I think people are going to be facing themselves and the feelings and in a way their existential situations, a bit more. And so in Buddhism. There's people go on retreats, and one of the ways in which they go on retreat is on a solitary retreat where they're just on their own all the time, for a period. And people might go for a week or 2 weeks or a month. And Kamalashila's done loads of solitary retreats in over his years in the order. But he did a particular one which was 18 months. On his own in a kind of bender thing in TP Valley in Wales. It's like a hippie kind of commune. And I know that you kind of went through it a bit at certain points in that retreat. So I just thought that it would be good to maybe like just talk a little bit about that at some point in the interview. Just
at some point.
Yeah. Sounds right.
At some point.
At some point, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just warming people up for that later on.
Okay.
So, but first of all, let's begin by just going into how did you first come across Buddhism? What's your history, and from the like childhood onwards? What were your parents like?
Ooh, well, my dad was in the LCC, the London Council, and he was a surveyor. And during the war, for some reason, he wasn't called up. He was very upset about this. He couldn't be called up because they said he had a heart condition, and I don't think he actually did. It was some kind of mistake. And but it meant that he spent the whole of the war working for the London Council. And of course, what was happening in London was lots of bombs falling, and he was all to do with property and so on. He had quite a lot to do with the buying up all the land around the South Bank project. So that was his big kind of life project, I think, was building up all the theatres and the. It's part of the big kind of new post-war vision, wasn't it? All of that.
Yeah.
That's my father. My mother was a nurse during the war, and I was always much closer to her. I didn't get on that well with my father in the end. We weren't exactly estranged, but there was a kind of a split at around age 10, which never really healed. I think. I still have all sorts of experiences connection with that. But of course, at the time, I didn't understand. But I think basically he had an aspiration for me, which was very based on not really knowing me at all. And so there's always been this sort of rift in my character.
What sort of aspiration was that then?
I don't really know. I think he wanted me to go to university. Probably because he wanted me to go to university, I decided not to do that.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be. I suppose I wanted to understand people more than I wanted to study and so on. I've ended up doing a fair amount of study and so on, but I didn't go to university.
Yeah.
And that's obviously set me back in many ways. But
Really?
I kind of caught up and made compensated for that in all kinds of ways. So that's what life dishes up for you, isn't it? I don't really mind, really, in the end. It's all sorts of advantages.
Yeah. And you went to art school instead, did you?
That's what I did instead, yeah. And what I did was, at around age 16, I could see the writing on the wall, and I decided, no, I don't want to be an academic. I don't want to go to university. I just went and saw the headmaster, and I told him that I was going to leave. And not having talked to my parents at all about this, rather momentous thing, and he was quite happy for me to leave. I don't think he liked me very much.
Yeah.
And this was pretty disastrous. Like I got a job. The job was unbearable. And my mother saved me, and I went to college.
Yeah.
And I did drama, art and drama and literature at kind of a secondary college type of place. And the drama was fantastic. Three years of half a day doing improvisation, all kinds of stuff like that. Really, I got so much from that in terms of personal development. Just interacting with people my own age. Also, women. I was in boys' schools all my life before that.
Yeah.
That was a very good time.
Was that? And that was in London, was it?
No, I grew up in Tunbridge Wells in Kent.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what year was this art school?
This was I left home. I was 16 in 75, 76, and so if we're talking about
75, sure.
mid-late 60s. So 60s, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
66, 65.
Yeah. And what do you remember about this late 60s, that sort of time?
I remember, it was just this whole period when everything was exploding, probably partly exploding because of the, my generational stuff and clothes and music and drugs and stuff you could read, stuff you could find out about. I mean, it's sort of kind of rather too much to talk about in a way. Just so much happened around that time.
Yeah.
It might take us a bit too far afield because it's all just my
sure. Yeah.
Adolescent stuff. I had various. Ask me something else.
Okay. All right. How did you come across Tree Ratner or FWO?
Well, over that period, as I said, I went to art school and I did my foundation course at Croydon, and I ended up thinking, well, I've got to make my way as an artist, and I was in a flat in Muswell Hill with some friends, and I was in there, and to get money to pay my rent, I did a handyman job in the cinema. So, like repairing windows and scraping chewing gum off the bottom of theatre seats and things like that. And a bit of painting and decorating, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
And another member of the staff, I used to talk to him every day. We used to talk about philosophy and Buddhism and all sorts of stuff. His name was Kevin. And this character, Kevin, who was one of the cleaners, he was doing something similar to me. He was just earning enough to pay his rent. And he was living with this Buddhist teacher. And he was living around the corner from me. So I started to visit, their community. So that was Sangharakshita, Kevin, I think Graham Souter, who was Siddhi Ratna, and got to know Sangharakshita that way, quite informally. He was just living round the corner from me. And I had already been very interested in Buddhism. I'd read the Tibetan book of what's it called? The Tibetan Yoga and Secret Doctrine, I think it's called. It's one of the Evans Wentz trilogy, along with the Tibetan Book of the Dead. There were other 4 of these books.
All right.
But I read the one about Milarepa's life. Tibet's great yogi Milarepa. I was incredibly impressed by that. And I'd never encountered anything to do with practice before. I'd grown up in the kind of usual milieu of lots of drugs, always partially stoned. All my friends always rolling up joints and taking other drugs as well. This is really, really normal at this time, and it didn't have the same associations that it does nowadays. And I think Milarepa really impressed me. Milarepa's it was that heart quality, actually. It was probably the Bodhisattva ideal or something like that, which something really shone through as real, completely real. And I was drawn to it, but all I could do was read the book. Now, it was only about 3 or 4 weeks later that I came across Kevin. Well, Kevin revealed what he, the person he lived with, and met Sangharakshita. I went round and Sangharakshita, he cooked the evening meal. He's in his 40s somewhere, probably about 45, 46 or something. And he cooked us a meal, like aubergine and rice or something like that, a vegetarian meal. I had been a vegetarian since my acid days, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. Before then, and he also had a bottle of wine on the table, which I didn't have. I rather disapproved of alcohol. But just his conversation, and the fact that the Buddhist path was something real, it really impressed me. And I decided to read his book. I read the survey. I took the survey up to Alexander Palace, which was just down the road from us, and I read it on the hill. I remember it was a very, very vivid experience. It took me a couple of days to read through the whole book, and I was just so convinced by his vision. And that was me, really. That was it, really. I just started going to meditation classes and just had lots of talks with him and other people who were around at the time. That's how it all happened.
Yeah. And did you? How did you kind of end up being like a meditation teacher rather than something else? What?
Well, I never sort of set out to be a meditation teacher, and I suppose I am in the same sense that you are in a way. We teach meditation, right? Because we do it, and it's something we can talk about through our experience. So I don't really regard myself as exclusively a meditation teacher. But the reason I am more associated than that with anything else is because of Vajraloka. And the whole huge story, the whole story there, because having been around Sangharakshita after a couple of years, I said to him, "Well, I think I'd like to get ordained," and I said, "I think I'm ready to get ordained." I think we thought in those terms, really. And he said, "Okay, well, maybe in the autumn." Okay, in the autumn. And in the autumn of that year, which was 1974, I was ordained along with Abhaya and Vajrayogini and a number of other people. And after that, I was involved with Pundarika in North London, along with Subhuti, Lokamitra, Damadina, and a whole host of other people. This is quite a long period. I'm really not very good at storytelling, but that whole era of squatting around the North London Centre, which is how the whole community ethos really evolved through probably upwards of 50 or 60 people just taking over houses and unused houses. This is a post-war period with lots of empty houses in London. Local councils were, fairly encouraging of people to take over these houses and save them from just falling apart. So we took advantage of that, and that was the sort of seeds of the early community aspect of Tree Ratnam. And from that era came the idea of the big push, and the big push was to start the new London Centre. We were going to build or find or start a really decent London Centre. And that's how the LBC was created. A number of us fundraised, and we started this project at the old fire station in Bethnal Green. I was involved in that for about a year, but I wanted to do something on my own. So I started going over to West London with another alderman, and we started a centre there, the West London Buddhist Centre. And I became chair of that centre. This is from about 76 probably. And after a couple of years, I'd kind of done my time. As the chair started things off, we did very well. We had communities, we had a couple of shops in Notting Hill. There was a men's community, women's community, and I managed to get burnt out. I managed to get quite burnt out. Classic chairman syndrome of because really I'm not really suitable to be any kind of holder of administrative responsibility. But I thought, in the style of those days, that that's what I should be doing, and other people thought that too.
Yeah.
So I was pretty hopeless, and still I'm quite hopeless at working with other people. So by the time we got to 1979, I was ready to leave, and I found myself in this abandoned, ruined farmhouse in North Wales.
Yeah.
Called Tynedol, and we were thinking of buying it. I went up there in 78 in the summer and spent a month up there, just studying, meditating in this ruin. It was a glorious time, solitary retreat, and it was very sunny, and it was very, for me, a southerner and a Londoner, a bit of an urbanite really. It was glorious. It felt very wild, and I ended up leaving West London and joining the building team to build the place. And I spent a year, the whole of 1979, right from the very beginning of January, when it was snow on the ground, building the place, and I ended up as one of the original community there. Vajraloka being our meditation centre, and in a way, Vajraloka, the meditation centre, was conceived of as the next big project after the London Buddhist Centre.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sangha actually had this vision of a place where order members in particular could go and refresh themselves.
Mm.
The image of the burnt out administrator, it was already obvious that people needed not just to start centres and do lots of classes, but also to go on retreat. So I think he really wanted us to have a good place where people could go on retreat, learn meditation, and go deep into practice as a kind of counterweight to what they were doing, building these public centres. Which by that time, the admonition was to go out and start a centre in Manchester, Birmingham, etc., which is what people were doing. So we were kind of a counterweight to all that. So that's how I ended up with that label.
Yeah. I mean, I did 9 months on Manchester Buddhist Centre's building project. Converting a warehouse, 5-story warehouse into Manchester Buddhist Centre, and I burnt out after 9 months of it's quite grim, that sort of building projects, and so maybe that's what people learnt really, that you need to. It's interesting, the whole thing. It's the way Sangharakshita's thinking has evolved. It's almost like, it's very practical, isn't it? In a way, it's like he'll have an idea about something and then try to put it into practice, and then learn what hasn't worked or what's missing, and then something. So maybe that's what happened.
Just dive in. Dive in
and learn through acting or something.
Sort it out as you go. That was very much the style of those days. The style was not, let's think this through carefully, make sure we don't get into anything that doesn't work. No, just completely, let's see what happens, just try it out. I think probably for a lot of naive and inexperienced young people, that's all we could do. But the movement largely consisted of people who were around 25 or 26. 24 maybe.
Well, here's a newsletter from I don't know when it is.
I'm in that picture.
Yeah, there you. I don't know if people can see that. So here's all the young people who are part of the order in those days. Sangharakshita there. Kamalashila right in the background. Don't they look young? Yeah. Can you see that?
Okay.
Yeah. Just as a sideline, I did find an article by you about Mandala, West London Centre.
Oh yeah.
There, I find it hard to.
I've never seen that picture before.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah.
And what I find interesting is that you were there. I don't know up to 79 or something. And it's basically kind of on Fulham, just off Fulham Palace Road, the centre in Fulham, And I moved into Earl's Court in late 77. So I would actually be passing the West London Buddhist Centre without any idea it was there. On my way to sign on at the Dole office every week. So yeah.
We had a very obscure entranceway. You had to really know where it was. It was right round the back of Lily Road.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
The place called Telephone Place. It was in the back of an old telephone exchange.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to find it.
Yeah.
Still, it was only £10 a week, the rent.
Yeah. And there was a famous punk rock venue just up the road as well, the Nashville Rooms, and you had all sorts of bands playing there, the Sex Pistols played there in '76 and stuff. I remember seeing Susie and the Banshees play 2 nights running in about early '78 or something. So it's kind of I think really kind of vibrant time in those days in late '70s in London. Yeah. Anyway, let's chuck that in. Bit of culture. Yeah. So so you got to Vajraloka, and then so did a community gradually form there? Just it was building to start with, and then how did it morph into kind of some sort of community?
Well, the whole period of building was actually incredibly refreshing. I didn't find that something that burnt me out. I found it incredibly refreshing just to do something with my hands.
Yeah.
But it was the building was very tough. It was Attila, me, Alia, and like two or three others. And the conditions were very tough. There was no running water.
Mm.
We had to go down to the river to bring water up in buckets.
Yeah.
To do building, to mix concrete, and we had a lot of concrete to mix and things like that. And the local builders merchants wouldn't deliver to the door. Because of the state of the road, they had to deliver about a third of the mile away. So we had to bring in all the material, including just things like gravel, in wheelbarrows from a cottage about a third of a mile away. It was incredibly hard work. Still, we were in our 20s, so we could do it.
Yeah.
Just
well, the river's about 300 yards away, isn't it, or something, up down the hill? You know, the river would be like 300 yards down the hill or something like that. So.
Yeah, you're with one of those barrows. It's downhill, nice downhill, and then a bit down, and then up a really high hill. Anyway, that was quite a formative experience for a lot of us working together like that. But by the end of that year, I think I was the only one who survived. All the others had never planned to be part of the meditation community, actually. And I think it could be that Shanti Prabhu, who's now Shanti Prabhu, then he was Adrian, he might have been part of the building right at the end. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember that bit. But Vasantra also came along, and Jody Parler also, who's back in the order now, he also came along. He may have been in the building. He must have been in the building as well for some of that period. Anyway, there was a little bit of a transition from the building to the new community. But it was mainly me, Vasantra, Adrian, and another guy called Kamalashila, who's deceased now, who was a Maori from New Zealand, who was ordained.
Yeah.
So we were the team.
Yeah.
I was the chair for some reason.
Yeah. And I mean, when I came along in the late 80s, and I remember going along to a meditation teaching forum thing. I think it was a Bodywise in East London, and it was you and Vajradhaka leading it. So you and Vajradhaka became kind of the two kind of kingpins, really.
That was a later phase of the community. That was probably the phase most people remember.
Yeah.
The early phase of the community, we weren't teaching; we were just practicing.
Right.
And that went on for a couple of years. Bhante's vision was just that the community would just practice, and other people would just join them.
Yeah.
Whenever they liked, and for free. They could just go along there and join in with the resident community.
Yeah.
And get on with their practice. And so we were delighted at this. Obviously, we thought, okay, we can do the foundation yogas, we can do our sadhanas, and we'd spend hours of the day just meditating. This went on for a couple of years. But the guests used to really have a hard time because we were, up at 4 o'clock doing loads of meditation, really, really into it. And they were coming in from London, and weren't used to being in the country. They weren't used to be on intensive retreat. They weren't used to being in silence at all. We'd been in silence for half the day, and we didn't make any concessions for them. We just were getting on with our practice because that's what we were told to do, as it were, and that's what we wanted to do. And when people came along and didn't find it very easy, we were kind of, this is the deal. You've just got to adjust. After a while, we realised that this is completely unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable. If people were going to benefit from this place, we had to take responsibility and start teaching. So we actually had to change the whole system that Bhante had set up and start running conventional, 1 week, 10 day, 2 week, 3 week retreats, and to learn to teach meditation. and it was a big change. We did that, and I think it was a little bit after that Vajradhaka came along and added his considerable experience to the mix.
Yeah. And you started like looking at things like Buddha Gosha, sort of, or looking into the Buddhist tradition for Sorry, not Buddha Gosha. Buddha Gosha and Chi Ai, Dhyana for beginners. So you start to look at kind of Buddhist teachers on meditation and stuff like that, and sort of draw.
We did. We
try to make sense of it or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were a bit on our own.
Yeah.
Sangharakshita always said, I will come and lead meditation retreats there. But strangely, he never ever did it. I think probably we did quite well, and I think also he had a lot on his plate, and I know that he spent a lot of those early years leading seminars, like in 79, 1980, 1981, 92. There were lots and lots of seminars, and I think that's what he must have decided to do. But he never came and led those meditation retreats. He did a couple of seminars on meditation practices.
Yeah.
I think not at Vajraloka though. And so that was a bit of a disappointment. But it threw us into the field of needing to work out what the best ways to teach were. And we did look to the lineage, to our antecedents. And Sangharakshita had his recommendations, didn't he? Chi Ai was his choice for one of those early seminars on jhana for beginners. And so we just milked, although any connection like that we milked for all it was worth. We really took all we could out of any indications that he gave us.
Yeah. And I remember seeing articles of in Golden Drum about people becoming anagarikas and things. So you did as well, didn't you? You kind of.
I did.
There's quite a few people who kind of experimented with celibacy and stuff.
Well, Vajraloka was set up as a celibate centre. Like everyone, you had to practice brahmacharya just to go there.
Yeah.
So the community practiced brahmacharya, and those who joined the centre, men and women, because there were women's periods as well at Vajraloka, we would just leave and they would come and take over. Everyone supposedly, and I think did, practice brahmacharya. So, there are benefits to that in terms of meditation experience. And I just decided, well, I'm doing this already. I might as well take the brahmacharya vow. And I did that. I think in '86 or something like that. It might be one of those golden drums the actual year. I can't quite remember. It might even be earlier than that.
Yeah, it's just kind of it's just a way of simplifying your life, isn't it? To stop focusing on sense experience and focus on meditation instead, and particularly
it's just an orientation. So for me, living at Vajraloka, it just meant that it was clear that I wouldn't be having sexual relationship outside of Vajraloka, so I wouldn't have another life. In London or something like that.
Yeah. So I remember you like being at Vajraloka. I mean, I don't know, it might have been the '90s or something, and then kind of leading a retreat, and then you'd hop in your car and zoom off at 90 mile an hour. And I think
by the '90s things had changed quite a lot.
Yeah. So I always thought of you as like sort of deep meditator, but you're also quite interested in the world as well, and kind of technology and stuff like that. I always appreciated that you had a kind of almost like a desire to not just stay in that meditative state, but to sort of be trying to bridge the gap between that and ordinary life and stuff. So yeah.
I suppose I think it's if you can, it's a good thing to do. I'm not sure about 1990, but maybe it was a retreat I came back to do because by then I was living in Birmingham, I think, in Maloka. Or was that? Or actually, you might be talking about when we had our study centre down the road.
Oh, yeah.
Because what we did at Vajraloka, we sort of realised that we need study as well as meditation. And so I started in another community at another property, which was about 5 or 10 minutes walk away. And we started a whole new thing there, which is based upon study. And the Mitra study leaders and order members would come to this new place which is called Vajrakuta, and we did all these study courses. So by that time I'd left Vajraloka.
Yeah.
I think that probably accounts for the image of me driving away in a car, because I did learn to drive around that time.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, maybe that's a bit later. Yeah. Well, I mean, I lived there
I'm still in Wales, and
yeah.
I'm at Vajrakuta. That's right.
Yeah, well, it was 94. I lived there for 6 months at Vajrakuta. Yeah, with you lot, you Sagramati and Ratnaguna and all.
Ratnaguna and Sagramati. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a big.
That's probably where you got your taste for study, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. So just winding back a bit. So, do you want to say a bit about your relationship with Vajradhaka? You're kind of very sort of different characters in a way. How did that?
Yeah, totally different. Very different.
How did that go?
I think we both found each other very problematic. But there was a great deal of love, because you just build up the connection. At the same time, we still remain, chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
He's the chalk. Sorry, no, he's the cheese. I'm the chalk in this particular case, I think.
Yeah.
And I think we find each other a bit of a mystery. I suppose I'm very introverted and he's very extroverted. That's one way you could look at it.
Yeah.
Have you interviewed Vajradhaka yet?
No.
Because I think you should. I think you definitely should.
Yeah. Maybe well. Yeah.
He's around, isn't he? He's around in London. I'm sure he'd agree.
Yeah.
I think Vajradhaka represented something for me, a little bit like I find it quite hard to describe. He's the kind of very experienced, worldly wise, kind of relaxed Californian, as it were. I think that's his connection. I know he came from America. He doesn't actually himself come from America, but he had been in the States, and he brought a lot back from the States when he came to Vajraloka. So that's my image. I'm very, I would say, unrelaxed. I'm very kind of I'm much more concerned about what you say rather than what you do. I don't know. I can't explain it very well because it's like talking about someone with such a different character. but I think I was always very jealous of his abilities to relate to people, and I probably learned an enormous amount from him.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it takes a long time to realise that it doesn't really matter about your personality type. You can relate to people anyway from that, and they appreciate that, even though you're not. Uh, I think I probably think about now. I think I probably tended to what's the word? Uh, Rather typecast Vajradhaka and think of him in a very particular way, probably as I've described him to you. When, of course, like everybody, he's a very multifaceted character. Because I saw myself in a very limited way. Because I was young and I didn't understand. But things can go different ways. So I think he was one of those factors in my life that I learned a lot from, without particularly wishing to.
Yeah.
I just did.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was to him. Probably, maybe much the same.
Yeah. I think
It's all about getting confidence in you. I think it was a lot to do with confidence because he was so easy and naturally confident in a certain way. I felt, oh, that's what I haven't got. Whereas, I had it my own way. I didn't realise that. So I'd always feel a bit on edge with him around. So we sort of didn't get on, but at the same time, we got along because we were in a community together and we were in the same order together.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I just kind of felt like there was a kind of it was quite a creative relationship, that in a way that maybe you both had a bit of grit in each other's oysters or something. It's a bit like there's some he added something. You both added something to each other that was about attention or something, but actually brought the best out in both of you, really.
Yeah, I think that could well be true.
Yeah, you were certainly impressive. I mean, when I first saw the two of you sitting in full lotus position, this is about 92 or 1 or something in East London, and I thought, I just wanted some of that. I just wanted some of that. You both had these big smiles on your faces, and you kind of upright, and all that stuff. And it made me want to. I thought, oh yeah, I want to be a meditation teacher. So yeah.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
But of course, we did come down to London from time to time for Vajraloka and did do bits of teaching.
Yeah. Okay. So I know that. Can we move on to something like insight or interest in sort of insight? So I know that Vajraloka became a bit of a place where people were kind of wanting to kind of explore insight, what insight was, and that sort of thing. And it's kind of stayed. It's stayed as that really. So, do you want to say a bit about that? How? Any thoughts around that?
Well, because we were teaching meditation practice, kind of deep practice, generally practice where, what did Sangharakshita call it? He called it direct practice. You're working directly on the mind, and with meditation you can work directly on ignorance through Vipassana practice. So you've got the shamatha practice, which is integrating your energies, your basic energies, integrating your attention, integrating your emotional mismatches, and so on. This is all shamatha. It's all becoming an integrated and concentrated person, if you like. And also developing a concentrated mind, so you can look at something in meditation. And then the insight is, I guess, a completely different department where you're looking at the nature of reality and asking questions like, what are we? In what way do we exist? What is the nature of reality? Why are we here? what's going on? Those are the sort of insight questions, and you can address those in meditation as well. Because you in as you familiarize yourself with meditation, you realize you can really apply your whole being, as it were, to these questions.
Yeah.
And you get some sort of shift in your very being.
Yeah. So the kind of theory is something like if you practice samatha meditation and then you get those qualities coming in, like flexibility of mind and adaptability and moral uprightness and buoyancy of mind, that come in the dhyanas, like prior to the third dhyana, and then with that kind of adaptable kind of, you've worked your mind in meditation, and then it's able to take more in, or sort of be imprinted more by the world and that sort of thing. So
and you mentioned moral uprightness as well. There is a moral aspect to the Buddhist path as well. So you get to the point where you look at your motives for things. This is even before you begin to meditate, although it can be worked on in meditation. You look at your motives for doing things, and you realise that a lot of your motives are pretty mixed, and you gradually sort of change your life so that your motives for things and the what you're actually doing in your life is very positive, and it backs up your efforts in meditation. And so with a mind like that, you feel much more able to address yourselves to questions like, who are we? What's going on? Does the self exist, and stuff like that? It means much more, if you've made those efforts to become ethical. Your reasons for doing it are ethical. You're not doing it out of some sort of desire to be clever. You're not doing it because of some sort of because you want to get back at someone you didn't like or something like that. No, it's nothing to do with that. It's just simply because you have a genuine interest in humanity. And that you're able to tap into that genuine love and interest in humanity and yourself as a human being. It's much more meaningful at that point. So the moral aspect and the concentration and what you say about the flexibility of mind, etc. It all kind of comes together.
So do you think, like, whatever insight you might kind of have or develop or whatever, really needs to kind of be kind of embedded in a kind of character that's quite human and quite rounded, and what's the benchmark really for how can you tell that somebody does have insight? What would you say to that?
Oh, that's a different question. I mean, first of all, I think you can apply yourself to insight questions any time. You don't. It's not as though it has to have this quality before you can get that quality. It's just that you're much more likely to get anywhere if you have some degree of what we call shamatha, or integration. And as I was saying, the motivation makes a difference. The question was about. Could you just ask that last question again?
Well, I'm just trying to kind of because I know that Vajraloka, became a bit of a. There's a strong interest in trying to kind of seek out, what's insight. Where do we go? Beyond the samatha practices like the metta bhavana and mindfulness of breathing. and it felt like there's a bit of kind of responsibility felt there that we need to do this. We need to, for the sake of the movement, we need to kind of work this out. So how do you feel that's worked out over the years? With like Vajraloka on the one hand and then the rest of the movement on the other, has it kind of? Do you think it's come together in a certain sort of way, or has it gone in different things gone in other different directions? Is there a kind of coherence there?
Historically, I mean, there are all sorts of historical things that have happened in the movement, but in a general way, I think Buddhists generally and Buddhists throughout Sri Lanka, we're all interested in insight. It's important for everybody, and everybody explores it as best best they can. Learns about it as best they can. Learns about it from other order members as best they can. There's a whole sort of global Triratna historical process that's had all sorts of ins and outs and ups and downs, and sometimes people are not quite knowing what they're doing. We're kind of having to, like everything in Triratna, learn by doing. And Sangharakshita is giving us some excellent examples, some excellent leadership, but there's just Triratna is quite large, and there's been a kind of in terms of attainment of insight, I think in any Buddhist movement anywhere, it's only a very, very small percentage of people who really do break through into deep insight. It's always been the case in any Buddhist tradition. It's usually the exceptional person who really has even the chance to look into insight. So I think in our movement, I'm looking kind of globally there, but in our own movement, we've set up excellent conditions, with our retreat centres, and in a way, Vajraloka's speciality in meditation has made them, in a way, has given them a special position in that, and I think they've, this is all, way after my day. I've done some of that work, but I think it's people like Tejananda, particularly, has taken that work forward in the last couple of decades, which have been the important ones, because it's only in the last couple of decades that you've got a build-up of experience, really quite deep experience in the order. You've got order members who've been practicing for 40 years or so, and I think that's needed to have been it's needed its outlets, it's needed its intercommunications around experience for us to really have a more generally understood and systematic approach to insight practice. It's still very much evolving, even now, even though it seems such a long time. It's still only now evolving.
Well, I mean, it would take a long time, wouldn't it?
There's loads we could talk about here.
Yeah, well, maybe shall we leave this topic a bit? So, is there anything that you'd like to talk about, just about the time since Vajraloka? You moved into the Preceptors College and stuff.
Well, there's been the Preceptors College and stuff. Yeah, I've been involved in that. But I think much more important for me has been moving out of the institutions of the movement, because I had a long phase of you mentioned my long retreat in Tipi Valley. Where the community there, it's a very large place, it covers several miles of wilderness in North Wales. They just gave me a chunk of woodland for as long as I wanted, and I ended up living there for about 4 years. during which I did a year and a half of complete solitary retreat. And for me, I decided to do that because I realised that I had become quite institutionalised. You know, I was like working through setting up centres, going around giving talks, doing my best to bring people into the path, which is all very good work, and I've benefited hugely from it. But somehow it didn't enable me to go deeper, and I became very concerned about that. And I just thought, what I need to do is just go off on my own for a while. That's what I did, and I found that whole period just deeply transformative. It's been the most important time of my life, and that was around 2000. Well, it was 2001 when I did the solitary part of that retreat, and then I just stayed on there as a hermit until about 2004, sort of coming out and doing things from time to time, and then going back to my tent, which is a big tent on the hillside. Did you come and visit it?
I didn't know. I saw pictures of it. Yeah.
I had a few people came and visited, and I thought you might have been one of them. You would have been very welcome. And after that period, I just wanted to live on the land all the time. I just wanted to live in woods all the time, and I tried to set up a land-based community, and this effort took the next few years really. I ended up failing to do that on myself, but I joined Gihapati in Spain, which is Ecodharma. And I was part of that for 3 years before I realised that this wasn't for me. It was a bit humiliating that I had to leave in the end. It wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. And that's when I came back to London.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah. So that Ecodharma is like 3,000 feet up in the Pyrenees. And,
in the Pyrenees, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite high up, isn't it? It's really dramatic countryside, yeah. And you'll live in yurts and things, up there. Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So can we just come back to you? I mean, I know probably what you're going to say is, I just did it. I just enjoyed being on my own for 18 months, But can you just say a bit more about that? About with an eye to people who are in lockdown and maybe struggling to cope with just the same repetitive thing every day. How do you deal with that? How did you deal with that?
Well, I don't think it's even helpful to make the comparison, because you can't. People who are in enforced retreat are not really on retreat. They're kind of forced to look at themselves. I mean, that's interesting in itself, and perhaps very valuable to some people. I think for a lot of people, they're just in resistance to it. And well, maybe what I could say is that there is a value in being restricted in that way, because you experience your mind and your motives and your thoughts much more vividly, I think. Maybe this is why people are tempted to take. You were talking about people drinking more than usual. I can understand that. It's. I think the experience of being not alone, but actually for a lot of people, it's literally alone, isn't it? For such an or just a partner, or just with a family. It just exposes your own thoughts and feelings more than before, because usually you go out and all the many other experiences you have outside the home just take up all your emotional involvement, and at home it's all kind of bottled up. Now, if you're a practitioner, a Buddhist practitioner or spiritual practitioner, and you decide to go on retreat, and you decide to put yourself in a position where you're going to experience all that much more intense experience of yourself, you can work on it spiritually, and that's a good thing. But I think it's much more difficult for someone who doesn't have that kind of vision. But maybe you can get it. Maybe you can get that vision, or sort of turn around a bit and see the benefits of experiencing yourself that way.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't wish to impose that on people if they're not ready for it or not really particularly interested.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Or are you talking just to Buddhists who are in lockdown? That's a completely different.
No. I'm just sort of thinking. Well,
you seem to be talking like to the generality of humanity. So for them, I think lockdown's probably painful.
Yeah. I mean, I
For
remember.
me, I've been like a pig in clover. I mean, I've really enjoyed the solitude, the quiet on the streets. I've enjoyed getting to know my partner even more than usual. And actually, even in my situation, it hasn't. You know, we've come up against certain difficulties in the lockdown, which we've had to face. But I appreciate that. I've appreciated that as well. So for me, there's been a lot of benefits in this period.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing about doing something by choice or having it imposed on you, you know. I mean, what I was thinking was that I remember seeing early on, and maybe a month into the lockdown, I remember seeing this post by a guy who's a psychologist in Liverpool, and he was saying something about what people need to do is have a bit of a sense of what you want to achieve, you know, through the lockdown, and what you want to come out the other side having maybe achieved something or changed something or whatever.
That would be good, yeah.
So that, you know, and because when we have a purpose, it's like it often mitigates against difficulties. So if we've got no purpose, we've got lots of difficulties. It's harder than if we've got some values that we're trying to bring about, and then we've got difficulties, but we feel good about ourselves because we've got those values there, you know, to set against the difficulties, you know. So I think the whole thing, maybe the thing about with when we've got something where it feels it's being imposed on us, maybe we can make a choice that we're just choosing it. Maybe, you know, act as if we're choosing it, and then it makes it better. It makes it more our thing rather than something that's happening.
Make something out of it, and I think there's more of it to come. You know, we're not at the end of it yet, and I think, do make something out of it. Study something or learn something new. There's so many opportunities online for doing that.
Yeah.
So many opportunities. I mean, for me, it's been an opportunity to teach, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. I've just been doing retreats throughout the whole period. And for me, it's been a great opportunity to do what I'm interested in doing, inviting lots of people into that. I'm not bound by programs at retreat centres. I don't have to travel anywhere. For me, that's a very good opportunity. And I've been teaching myself quite a lot of things and learning quite a lot of things through the whole period.
So, you know, when it comes to facing difficult feelings, when we're in a situation, you know, when we're in any sort of situation really, but you know, we've just got these feelings, and it's like we want to run away from them, or we want to distract ourselves from them. So it's kind of advised that we don't do that, isn't it? And that we sort of somehow like turn towards those feelings and just see them as kind of like part of life. And you know, I'm just trying to draw something out that people might find helpful here if they're not Buddhists. And you know,
no, if you're feeling very restless, for example, it can be helpful to not immediately just get up and do something, but to actually say to yourself, well, that's interesting, I'm having this feeling, and look at it more closely and experience it more deeply. And sometimes something happens, and it not only it changes, and there's some sort of change in the mind, which is hard to describe. But it's an assimilation of that feeling, and it's an acceptance of that feeling, rather than just a reaction to it. I mean, you can just see this as a physical level. We find it very difficult to sit still.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's the restlessness. Well, you can just decide, well, rather than just getting up and moving around, I'm just going to sit here with it, not in a rigid way, but in a spirit of learning and opening to kind of what's the spirit behind that somehow.
Mm. Yeah, so like when like in Zen Buddhism, people just sit hour after hour after hour, don't they? Just kind of in a way not moving and focusing on the posture, and in a way they're resisting that urge to act on the stimulation when it arises. So yeah, I think there's something about this and that we can learn to just be still, can't we? We can learn to.
Yeah,
we can
they're
practice
not pushing the feelings away.
Yeah.
They're not trying to escape the feelings. They're completely accepting the feelings, which is a hard thing to do. And they're doing that because there's a benefit for it in it. So if you try that, you might find the benefit for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of the sessions I've done, I've tried to emphasise that just let the body just sit there naturally, just look to the structure of your body to just be in line with what's happening, and then relaxation is just unfurling a fist. So it's like you're not struggling against it. You're working with the actual conditions that you're in, rather than having an idea of things. It's like being clear what's the actual case. What can you rely on, what can you not rely on.
I mean, it's always a good idea to live like that, because whether you're on retreat or off retreat.
Yeah.
You always do much better if you just accept what's going on and respond with that acceptance.
Yeah.
It's the same in everything. It's the same with the conversation. It's the same with absolutely everything.
Yeah. So you accept what's going on, and then you just try to do your best within the limitations of what's there, but actually work with the structure of things so that you see what brings happiness about, what doesn't bring happiness about, and try to be mindful of that. Yeah. Okay. We've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes. Have you got anything more you'd like to say about anything?
Well, hello. I mean, there's plenty to talk about, isn't there? I'm not quite sure. Because we've gone quite quickly through my whole life, from birth to the present, from my parents to the present, it feels like we have to go back if we're going to talk about my experience. Let's have a think. I didn't want to. Earlier on, we were talking about you asking about the college, and I think you were asking me about this whole area of my life, which has been to do with trying to take some responsibility for kind of movement-wide responsibility. And I said, well, that was insignificant in comparison with my retreat. But it doesn't mean to say it's insignificant in itself. It's very significant, I think. I've been someone who's been asked to take all kinds of responsibilities, like chairing centres and things, and I've sometimes taken it on as well without being asked. And that has been important for me. I wouldn't want to say that it's. I would certainly not wasted time. It's very, very important. And I do feel that our movement, Tree Ratna, has huge potentials, and I think it's wonderful that it can engage so many people with the Dharma, and I feel quite proud that we've managed to work together, to so many of us, to make this happen. I do think it's a very precious thing that we're trying to take forward, and therefore it's very, very important that now that our founder Sangharakshita has died, it's very, very important that we gather the right threads together, or something like that, to take into the future. I feel that's tremendously important. I'm no longer part of the Preceptors College. I'm an elder at the Preceptors College. That doesn't really matter. We're all having an influence, and there are all sorts of voices of dissent and doubt, as there always are, as there always were. I really think that we need more discussion, actually, if we're going to achieve the coherence as a movement that we really would need to fully establish ourselves in the West independently of our teacher, obviously still in relation to him. Then I think we have a fair amount of work to do in discussing our approach to the Dharma. I feel that's a very important thing that we have in front of us, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, I was hoping that some of these sessions might end up being a bit like that, really. Kind of more discussion, just learning about people's thoughts and.
Well, you talked about insight, Vipassana, in the movement, and there's a topic that touches upon this. You've got something so diverse that creates such diversity as spiritual practice. It makes people very different from each other. Makes people even more different than they were before. Makes people much more individual. And the spiritual movement is all about realization of the true nature of reality. You have a lot of people starting to do that. They have quite different, they can speak with one voice in a certain way, but in other ways they're clearly very different. It's really interesting stuff, and people start to contribute to the world as in a much more individual way. At the same time, the responsibility of the spiritual community is to kind of tie things together. But you don't want to tie things together in a repressive way, or in a way that dumbs things down. It's actually quite a difficult thing to hold. Especially for we are quite a large movement, and the diversity in different socio-political situations is incredibly diverse. What holds us together, do jump in any time, but what holds us together is the order itself.
Yeah.
The order itself doesn't have any any legal existence even. It is just a bunch of people who follow the precepts.
Yeah.
And have a particular spiritual idea.
Well, I kind of feel it's a bit like the sum total of our interactions, really, is what the order is.
And it's the sum total, it's the mandala, if you like, of our interactions.
And the quality of those, yeah.
I really like that kind of image of the order as a mandala, as a kind of natural force in the world, which basically consists of all these interactions, before, during, after death, before, during, after ordination. People who resign are still having an effect on the order. People who are in the order are at all sorts of levels of involvement and levels of understanding, levels of personal maturity. So much going on in the mandala, and it's all it's all kind of material for awakening.
Yeah. I did this session on Buddhism and science, and what I focused on there was the idea that like science measures things from the outside, doesn't it? And it says, "Oh, this is true. Well, I can replicate this experiment to another person, and therefore, there's evidence that this is the case." But I think for like spiritual life, it's almost like everything comes down to our inner experience and what the judgments that we make about things and what we put our faith in. So it comes down to us in the end. And what we do. What we take responsibility for. Do we take responsibility for ourselves and for other people and stuff like that?
It comes down to our ability to be objective and to make sound judgments and to have wisdom. In other words, not assuming things. Wisdom is about not assuming things and opening up to reality in a certain way. A bit like science is supposed to be, and I think, there is kind of real science where you've got people like, is it Bohm? You've got these kind of, the whole field of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, where it's quite clear that the looking at something affects it. In other words, the mind that is conducting an experiment is actually influencing the experiment. There is between a particular subject and a particular object an overlap. They're both partaking in each other, and this is it's a scientifically proven thing now with quantum mechanics. But I think the rest of science has not caught up with that, and maybe it won't. So science itself is quite a broad church, if you like, isn't it? You've got people who are doing sort of quite ordinary research into things like, I don't know, but then you've got this quantum level of reality, which is very similar, if it's not identical, to the Buddhist conception of shunyata, where you can't say that much that's definitive about anything.
Yeah, well, it takes it.
It's open.
Yeah,
its nature is quite open.
Yeah, well, quantum mechanics takes away the idea that things can be certain in the physical world.
Yeah.
And that undermines, in a way, it undermines that view that science can look after everything or know everything or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no doubt it could if it kind of opened up to these perspectives of the perceiver and the perceived not being different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think things come in the end from a spiritual point of view. It comes down to we are trying to develop wisdom, and we are trying to, and that's in a way that can only come. You pays you money and takes your choice. So you choose one thing or you choose something else. And whether you choose wisely is up to you. Nobody can choose things for you. So we all just make our choices, don't we? And then we then reap the
Yeah.
consequences down the line, you know. So
Terrifying. It's terrifying. Yeah.
so yeah. So we do really need other people to help us make the right choices, and you know, kind of keep checking that we're not going off on one, you
again,
know.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we need each other, and we also need each other like a hole in the head. It's both.
yeah,
You know, you know, you need occasional, really good inspiration from others, but also you are responsible for yourself. You know, the whole thing of personal responsibility is huge in Buddhism.
yeah.
We are trapped in this situation where our every thought changes us. And there are
And the world,
consequences
you know.
to every single micro decision that we make has consequences.
Yeah.
And this is a terrifying thing. And it's also a wonderful thing, you know, an amazing thing. And it's like, can we grasp that and use it?
Yeah.
Well, yes, as you say, we need advice. At the same time, you don't need too many. You do need to do it yourself, you know.
Sure, yeah. Right. Any final thoughts?
Oh, final thoughts.
Well, okay. Any other thoughts?
Well, you got me thinking about death there because I was reading something, Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and they had a lovely quote from Heathcote Williams. It's not somebody I normally particularly like his work, but it's something like death. That's right. Death. In death, we develop the photographs that we took during life. So it's as though in life we're doing so many things. We're making so many decisions, so many mistakes, so many amazing things. They're all happening. Everyone has consequences for the psyche or the soul or the person or whatever that goes through life. And in death, you kind of meet that. You know, it's symbolically represented by the Lord of Death and you know, weighing the black and the white and so on. But actually, we have a sense of that right now. We have a sense right now of the consequentiality, is that the word, of our deeds and our thoughts. We have a sense of that. We just don't have time to process it all. It's all too complicated. But at death, it all opens up, and you kind of see what you've done in that way. I think this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I suppose
it's terrifying, but you know, could we look forward to it? You know, could we look forward to a moment like that? Like something I aspire to.
Yeah.
You know, when we think of death, we think of dying. That's different, isn't it? We think of the manner of death. We think of pain. We think of loss. We think of complication. We think I don't understand it anyway. And so we have all sorts of thoughts that stop us thinking about the actual thing itself, the actual fact of you know what is happening psychically or in terms of the mind. Interesting.
Yeah.
The rest of it is also scary, but in a different way. Sorry, I'm going on a bit, aren't I? But you did ask me about my last thoughts.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Yeah. I mean,
I'm getting your internet connection is unstable. I think it's probably me.
I can still it's still working fine here on this end.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
You just did a like this, and it's right now.
Yeah, I mean, in one of the sessions that I did a couple of weeks ago was Sarah Savannah, and she's living with
who?
Sarah Savannah in Manchester. She's got
yeah, you're breaking up.
Oh, sorry. What? Yeah, Sarah Savannah in Manchester. Can you hear me? No. Oh dear.
Oh, you're back now. I think
Okay.
you're back.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had a really great session with Sarah Savannah from Manchester from Breathworks, and she's living with already with a pulmonary condition. That even before lockdown and COVID and all that, she had this real breathing difficulties, um, and that she talked about the Damien Hirst shark in a tank. The impossibility of imagining death in the life of somebody living, or something like that. It's a title.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I find that I just think I can't imagine it at all. It's just. But I do sort of think, oh, but hang on, it. What's the consequence of thinking like that? And if the consequences I start to feel a bit depressed or something, then it's probably not a good consequence. So it's probably better to sort of think in terms of kind of something continuing, or or like an enlightened consciousness that kind of continues, that can cope with all of that,
Oh,
that I can
oh,
identify with, and then it's like I'm not kind of
yeah,
on my own in the confusion of it all, sort of thing. So it's funny. I alternate
yeah,
between I alternate between hope and kind of like blank incomprehension, that sort of thing. Do you do the same? Something similar?
Um, in relation to death, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I think for a long time I have thought that consciousness continues in some way or other. Um, but it has occurred to me in our conversation that actually this thing is also in the background for the lockdown, isn't it? I mean, the reason we're in lockdown is because people are dying of the virus, and we're all in danger of catching a virus and possibly dying from it. So I think death is in people's minds as well as the fact that they can't go out.
Mm.
And there's been a lot of fear actually, and even terror actually of death. And so I think this is a good topic to explore in relation to the lockdown, because I think people must be thinking, what is it? What will it be like, or what is it like for others? And so I just
Mm.
think that's relevant to this conversation.
Mm. Yeah, our tendency is to kind of try and go then and kind of bounce off, isn't it, or something like that. It's like it's hard to
Yeah,
stay with it or
that's right. And
something.
change the subject as quick as you can. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
change the subject because you can't talk about it. There's nothing you can, people. It's hard to talk about. I think
Mm.
maybe you and I can talk about it because we've kind of dared to think about it, and we're encouraged to think about it, and we have materials in Buddhism that help us to think about it. That's fantastic.
Mm.
I think we're lucky, very lucky.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Right.
What do you mean? Okay.
What do you want to do next?
Well, you're the boss. You're the
Yeah.
boss. You have to guide me.
Well,
This is your show.
I know it is. So I'm just being transparent about where I'm at with it. So, shall we leave it there for today? And
Okay.
uh,
Okay. Yeah. I hope you can get some good stuff out of that material. I presume you cut it down a bit.
no, just put it all out there, the whole thing.
Just put it as it is. Fine. Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I think no, there's been some interesting things. I think have come out around.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really hope.
yeah. No, it's just good to do this sort of thing, isn't it? To just talk about our lives, and like people do life stories
Yeah.
and in Buddhism.
Well, loads more can be said about our lives. My goodness,
Yeah,
there's so
yeah,
much of
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
think I think we really just talked about a few tiny little things.
yeah, 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 yeah. So maybe this is a thought for people in lockdown. Like, why don't you just explore each other's life stories a little bit? Get into,
Mhm.
forget about the watching the next
Well,
Netflix series and stuff.
why assume that people aren't? Maybe people are doing that.
Yeah, maybe they are a bit more. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, getting to know each other a bit more. Maybe that's just happening. Maybe the pressure of the lockdown is making that happen a bit more. Not assuming anything.
Well, you can have a great conversation on Zoom.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so I'm sure.
So what's next? Do we just stop? Do we? And then
Yeah, and then I'll get you to lead a meditation, which we'll put on on the following day on Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay. So when will we speak again then?
Well, in a minute when I stop this video, and then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Signing off for today. See you tomorrow. All right.